And we're back. Welcome to RPG Talk with
With your
your host.
host, David Musakunik, and
Jason Dedman. This week
today,
we're apparently going to talk about Game Chef.
yes, 2014 Game Chef. So, Jason, have you ever done Game Chef before?
I have toyed with it in the past, but usually I can't come up with an idea that I am happy with within the constrained 9 days?
Somewhere about there, yeah.
Yeah. So I have
So, this,
never actually completed Game Chef before.
but
How
you
about
will.
you?
But you're gonna finish this year, right?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna have time this year.
I am also struggling for time to focus on something. Um, I have some notes written up in a document, and I don't know if it's ever going to become more than that. But I
Well,
guess
tell us about your idea.
fine. All right. So
I'm sorry. Should I not? Because someone might steal your idea and Game Chef it before you.
no, if they do, that's awesome. I'd be happy to play that game. Um, so I had two ideas that came up, and I'm trying not to do that anymore. But a couple of years ago, I did Game Chef, and I had three ideas, and I actually did make three games. And I entered them all. That was a lot of work, especially since you had to review like 4 games for each game you submitted. So I had to review like 12 games. Um,
Yeah, that
so
seems like
there's
it'd be a lot of work.
it was great. I mean, it was just was like I hit a rhythm and went with it. But anyways, this year I was like, well, I have two ideas. One more closely addresses the ingredients than the other, so that's what I'm going to go with. And like I said, I don't know if I'm actually going to polish this up to something more than notes. Just been really busy. But my idea that I did write out more about was about survivors of an unspecified event who use a ritual to transform members into living manifestations of law or justice to police the world and prevent another cataclysm. So it's that simple. Um, the theme of this year's Game Chef was There Is No Book, and some people have just retitled that as Unbound, which I think is a great name in of itself. And this has led a lot of people into developing ideas that don't use paper or use books in different ways, multimedia. One of the criteria was to make it as accessible as possible for people with disabilities. So there are a lot of little challenges for that. And some people are going to ignore some of those things and just make whatever they're going to make, obviously. For me, I was just going to make sort of a traditional indie RPG game experience with this one. But, the ingredients. The ingredients are wild, sickle, absorb, and glitter. There have been a lot of people having fun with the glitter one, I've noticed. Well, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much more to say about the game at this time since it is so rough. I just think the idea of having these people personified as law or justice, kind of like vigilantes in a way, rather than having a textbook, you have these handful of people going around and deciding what's right and what's not right. It just seemed interesting to me.
Sure.
Do you have any questions or anything on that?
No, although apparently I was unclear on the whole theme thing because I thought it was not a book thing was just about the physical or otherwise manifestation of the game rather than like actually making it part of the game.
There's a wide variation on that. So don't feel like your game is not going to be considered because of that. In the so-called rules, there's a lot of whole like feel free to misinterpret this rule sort of talk. So I would just go with what you think works, and see what happens. Of course, the idea of winning in Game Chef is silly, but some people do like that, that they can say that they won a Game Chef. So let's talk about your game. Your game is very nicely, tightly written at this point.
Is it?
It's very short.
I thought it was mostly notes, but yes, I. What I'm working on is a GM-less game. I'm thinking at this stage, 3 to 5 players. Although I'm thinking an even number of players will work best. So 4 is probably going to be the sweet spot. The idea is that a dwarven city is encroaching on a wilderness area protected by druids, and the druids have been summoned by their arch-druid to try and put a stop to the city's expansion into the forest, and they have 6 days to accomplish this task, because after those 6 days, the arch-druid will pass on or ascend, because it's the summer solstice, and one of the druids who is attempting to prevent the city's expansion will become the next arch-druid. And it's got a fairly straightforward, I think, resource mechanic that's all about pushing stuff or pushing stones around to narrate actions and outcomes. Do you have questions?
Well, when I was reading it, it reminded me of not a specific one, but it's very procedural, like a board game. And I don't know why that was, but I could see like a map where you have tiles or something that show the dwarves' expansion versus the wilderness, going back and forth, filling up the board potentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote my notes, and if I have time, my intention is to write the game in a very straightforward board game-like fashion, for instruction-wise. But obviously, it's a role-playing game. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of open space for players to interpret what's going on with the game.
So do you see this as players playing against each other, or are they all playing druids, or what?
Oh no. The way the game works is that that half the players play druids and half the players play people who are working in the city towards the expansion. That's my intent anyway. Although I guess saying that, I could see everyone playing a druid, but I think it would be personally more interesting if some people were playing the city and some people were playing the druids.
So you're not having people play dwarves, but you're having them play aspects of the city?
No, they're playing dwarves. They're playing characters.
Okay.
The idea of character setup is that everyone gets like a pre-designed character, and then separately everyone's going to get essentially like a secret agenda card that kind of informs how they're going to what they're going to be pushing towards in play. Because everyone on the druid side wants to be the next arch-druid. Or maybe one of the agendas will be that they don't want to be the next arch-druid. I don't know. But my going in, I'm thinking everyone on the druid side wants to be the next arch-druid, and everyone on the city side wants this expansion because this, for whatever reason, the city needs to expand, or it's going to overflow its borders, or they're going to lose population, or whatever. I mean, I haven't come up with a reasonable rationale for why the city needs to expand. I assume that when I design the agendas for the city players that will inform why that person in particular wants the city to expand.
So let's see. So the druids are competing against one another to become another kind of druid, correct?
Right. They're competing. They want to be chosen as the next high druid.
All right, and the dwarves are only working to expand the city, correct?
Correct.
So I'm trying to think about this. You have like a succession war on the one hand, and an urban expansion project on the other.
Yes.
And so, how does that in the game? How does that facilitate interaction, like between the two camps, or like the dwarf one too? There's no like internal struggle. There's just expand the city unless there's like a resource issue they have to fight over. To me, it's like they're like two different games in the way that I see that.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming that the two sides. I mean, first of all, the two sides have to interact because of the way the mechanics work.
Okay.
Because the way the currency in the game works is that a druid player has to transfer currency from themselves to a dwarf player. So the druid player says, says, I'm going to take this action to stop this project.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, they're going to start with, I'm going to go and negotiate to see if maybe I can convince them not to pave over the forest. But they might go crazy. They might say, I'm going to start with, I'm going to destroy, all the earth moving equipment or whatever that the dwarves have.
Mm-hmm.
But when they do that, they have to give currency. They have to give some of their currency to a dwarven player, and then that dwarven player narrates the outcome, like what happens when they do that. You see what I'm saying?
So does the dwarven player get to narrate it however they want to?
Um, yes.
So why wouldn't they just narrate the druid characters failing?
That's a good question, and my in my head, the presupposition of the fiction is that that the druid doesn't fail. I mean, so they have to narrate, like they're not necessarily narrating like, oh, you do this and nothing happens. Like, I mean, the ideal is that they're narrating, how people in the city see this action and respond to it.
Okay. Maybe we should playtest it.
Ideally, at some point, it needs to be play tested, yes, but I don't know if it's gonna happen before Game Chef is over.
Okay. Well, we can talk outside of this to see if we could schedule it, if that's
Sure.
possible.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Anything else, Game Chefy?
I don't have any other Game Chef plans. Um, I've got one day off this week, that I might be able to turn into some Game Chef activity, but more than likely what that will mean instead is that I'll be doing housework, and not Game Chef. But like the game, as I've got the notes sketched out, interests me, so even if it doesn't happen for Game Chef, I'd be interested in seeing it happen otherwise. So,
No, that sounds good.
do you have other Game Chef thoughts?
I would just say this to anyone who doubts that Google Plus is alive, that they should just look at the Game Chef community and see that at least for gamers, it is quite alive. I have not been able to keep up, and I am not planning to go and read all the various threads because I just don't have the time. But it is quite active, and I'm a little bit torn about the use of G Plus for this sort of thing, but it seems to be working for a lot of people. It's not as centralized as what I would want, but I have a filter on my Gmail to help coordinate the threads as they come in. But it's been very active, and it's been interesting reading the few things that I have. I remember last time I played a couple of years ago, and it was active in different places. There was the Forge was temporarily used. There were other people talking on other platforms. So I think it's a good thing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the finalists are, because they're the ones who get judged to be pushed forward. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the end, whether or not I participate in the contest. It'll be neat to read the games. So this would be the third Game Chef that I'd be involved with. The first one was the Shakespearean one based. The one after that was a little bit different. They had a lot of coyote-themed games in it. And last year, neither of us participated. It was the shape icons, I believe.
Yeah, I poked a few ideas, but it just nothing ever really gelled from that.
Yeah, and I liked the idea of using those visuals rather than words. I really did. But yeah, I didn't have the time to spend to develop any of my ideas, so I just decided not to bother. But no, I like that they're trying these new themes out and new ideas. But yeah, I strongly urge anyone interested in game design to at least give something like this, whether it's Game Chef or the 24-hour game contest. Just they're great exercises, and you learn a lot. And it's a great way to network and talk to other gamers doing similar things. So it's a very valuable thing in our community, and I'm very grateful for it.
Okay, well, that solves a certain question, because I was going to ask you what you feel about contests such as this, but apparently you're very pro gaming game design contest.
Yeah, and I'm actually planning to incorporate. I've been thinking about this for a while. Incorporate an idea similar to this into some professional advertising and design groups as challenges and things like that, especially for students. But I think you just learn a lot very quickly. I think it's really nice, and the only pressure there is really for you to get something done, realizing that it's not going to be a perfectly polished piece. So, yeah.
Sure. Cool. Okay, well, I mean, is there something else you want to talk about? We've got about 10 minutes left.
What can you say? No, I think I've said pretty much everything. Hopefully, I'll be curious to see how many games actually get submitted, given all of the other languages involved too. There's like 8 or 9 different languages, so it's growing immensely, quite large. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to the results, and we'll see in like a half a week, something like that.
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess that's our handcast on Game Chef. Hopefully next time we'll have played a scene or two in our nascent and as yet unstarted Storium game, and we can talk about that.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and have a good night. Keep playing games.